on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:07 now on O'Connor and Company. It's Wednesday morning, the 21st day of August. 21st day of August. Why does that date seem familiar to me? August 21st. August 21st.
I think you have something special going on. I don't know. Well,
it's my anniversary.
happy anniversary to you and Meredith.
Thank you.
That's so sweet.
Happy anniversary, Meredith. 9 years. Boy, that went fast. At 6:35, we'll talk to Cal Thomas. At 7:35, Chuck Thies talk about Trayon White getting arrested for bribery and corruption. And then at 8:05, Matt Schlapp from CPAC and American Conservative Union. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Oh, there's so many great moments to pull from yesterday. Here's one. So every night they've had a different host, like an MC to move things along. They've had like a sort of a quasi-celebrity. But you know they're scraping the bottom of the barrel on night two, and they pick Ana Navarro.
You mean Republican Ana Navarro for the Democratic National Convention?
When was the last time she was really a Republican? I know people who Republican campaign consultant is how she's always introduced. So I believe it or not, Patrice, I actually know people who are legit Republican campaign consultants. And I said, who has Ana Navarro ever actually worked for? Apparently, during John McCain's 2008 campaign in Florida, she had an unpaid job advising on the Latino vote in Florida.
Oh, talk about far out there. I mean, it's not like she was actually, when you're paid, that I take your word more seriously than unpaid means she probably sent an email with a couple of talking points that they may or may not have used. Well, that's what that is. Hey,
God bless her. This is a great country. She's been able to leverage that into being Republican political consultant Ana Navarro. She's a TV personality, and of course you know that she's one of the panelists on The View. She's also a paid political analyst for CNN. So think about that for a second. She's a paid political analyst for CNN, and she's the MC of the Democrat National Convention on the stage, drawing a paycheck from the party. So let's hear what happened on CNN when she was introduced as the host of the evening.
Please welcome TV personality, loud and proud Latina, Ana Navarro.
All right, it's an exciting time here for the delegates in the United Center. Caitlin Collins is on the floor.
Wait, I thought her voice changed. I'm like, did she go through a transition?
No, they cut right away. And there's CNN's Jake Tapper trying to jump in there. Jake, why don't you say a few words to your colleague there? Your fellow analyst and journalist. All right. Bernie Sanders got his moment in the sun last night, by the way. He said, again, remember, Joe Biden had to wait till 11:30 at night to get on the stage. He's the actual president of the United States, and this should have been his nominating convention. He had to wait till 11:30 at midnight. Bernie Sanders, though, right there in prime time.
Because too many of our fellow Americans are struggling.
They're the incumbents.
They are.
Who's he running against? There. Too many of our Americans are struggling right now. 4 more years.
But let's be clear. They're struggling because of the incumbent vice president and president.
Yes.
Because of them.
We need to be elected so we can do something about this. You're literally holding power now.
You can do something today if you knew what you were doing and had something to do. You could do it today.
No, but being a communist like Bernie Sanders means that you have to always be in the opposition. You're always the opposite. Okay. You're always fighting against those other people who really hold the reins of power.
Every day to just get by, to put food on the table, to pay the rent, and to get the health care they need.
There you wait. What about Obamacare? I thought Obamacare fixed all that. He then railed against, of course, billionaires.
Please welcome TV personality.
Wait a second. All right, here.
We need an economy that works for all of us, not just the billionaire class.
By the way, if you roll back the tape to 2016 when he first ran for president, that same talking point was the millionaire class. But now since Bernie's a millionaire, he's had to make it billionaire class. So.
Well, he owns some pretty pricey property in Massachusetts in the Berkshires, if I remember correctly. He's a great capitalist.
He's doing just
we'll
fine
put it that
for
way.
himself. Yes, absolutely. So here, I kid you not, this is how the evening went. You got Bernie Sanders saying this.
We need an economy that works for all of us, not just the billionaire class.
That's right. And then immediately following him was the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, one of the richest billionaires in America. And he actually spent his time bragging about being a billionaire.
Thinks that we should trust him on the economy because he claims to be very rich. But take it from an actual billionaire.
So are you following this? Because I'm not sure aren't we supposed to hate billionaires? And isn't the system rigged for people like Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, the billionaire?
Well, we're supposed to hate. That's what the Democrats want you to do, is to hate them, hate people who make more money than you. Yet they themselves have their hand. Well, I won't say they all have their hand in the kitty, but they are definitely leveraging your poverty story to make money for themselves. So it's, again, don't watch what Democrats say. Watch what they do.
Yeah.
And what they do is enrich themselves, especially after they leave office.
So it was an evening of Bernie Sanders, Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and J.B. Pritzker. By the way, when Doug Emhoff was giving his speech, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz did a rally in Milwaukee at the same time the convention was going on in Chicago.
That's weird timing.
Kamala Harris was then returning to Chicago, and while her husband was on the stage, she was, of course, in what they call Air Force Two, one of the secondary planes used for members of the cabinet. Her husband was speaking, and she ordered the pilot of the plane to circle Chicago for an extended 15-minute span so that she could finish watching her husband's speech.
How much gas did they expend doing that?
That's really, really wasteful, really bad for climate. By the way, I was just in Milwaukee earlier in the year, and I was flying out of Chicago O'Hare. I drove. You can drive. It's not that. It's like a 2-hour drive from Milwaukee to Chicago, or an hour and a half. Just drive. But no, she flew her plane. She had it circle for 15 minutes. Also, by the way, ever try to fly into O'Hare?
I did, yeah.
When a government official is trying to land because of Secret Service, that's going to tie up air traffic.
Yeah.
But, she's Kamala Harris, damn it. If this is how she acts as a nominee, imagine how she'll be as president. A little bit more from last night coming up in a moment. First, though, at 6:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10
Mark Levin, weeknights from 6 till 9.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
The vice president was returning to Chicago after having campaigned in Milwaukee earlier in the day, and she was on Air Force Two when her husband, Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman, began speaking at the convention. So the plane actually circled for an extra 15 minutes, we're told, in the sky so she could finish watching his speech. Of course,
that's kind of hypocritical, isn't it? And again, incredibly wasteful and power hungry. But that's who she is. Oh my goodness! Doug Emhoff, by the way, sort of owned the Kamala cackle there last night in the speech. He actually listen.
Well, you know that laugh. I love that laugh.
That's just a lie.
Well, he has to. That's his wife.
Nobody. I don't care.
Of course, you have to love your wife's laugh.
No, you don't. Nobody loves that laugh. I'm sorry. If Meredith had that, I'd still love Meredith. Happy anniversary, Meredith. I love her. But if she had that laugh, I would have to. If someone, I'm sorry. If you put a gun to Doug Emhoff's head and said, "No, seriously, hold on. Do you want to hear this the rest of your life?" The man's a liar.
He did.
Listen,
Larry, he put a ring on it. He owns that for the rest of his life.
I love that laugh.
Nobody loves that laugh. I'm sorry.
Well, the bigger point is that the people shoving EVs down our throat, and EV mandates down our throats, are the ones that are wasting airplane fuel. Yeah, come on now. Rules for thee, not for me.
Of course,
Barack
Obama took the stage last night. We mentioned a little bit of it. I do want you to hear this one part because it is probably the most cynical part of his entire speech.
Knows it's easier to play on people's fears and cynicism. Always has been. They will tell you that government is inherently corrupt, that sacrifice and generosity are for suckers.
Government is inherently corrupt. And honestly, is there any evidence to suggest at this point that it's not? I want to just remind everybody that this is the man who engineered the FBI investigation of Donald Trump over Russian collusion and the Steele dossier when he had already been briefed months before that the Steele dossier was a product of the Hillary Clinton campaign. If people believe right now that the government is inherently corrupt, it is because of the actions of this man for 8 years. It's absolutely, and again, I'm using Barack and Michelle Obama's audio from last night sparingly because it is so infuriating to hear the lies and the gaslighting from these two, and it's just applauded and praised by the mainstream media.
Well, and here's the thing, Larry. They didn't make a compelling case for Kamala Harris. They just made they rehashed a lot of lies and mistruths, lies about President Trump to reignite people's anger over Trump. That's what they did. It wasn't a glowing, this is what Kamala Harris will do. This is what she has done as an example. It was absolutely more about President Trump and making people feel riled up to vote against him. That's all they did last night.
You have to, I think it was Glenn Beck who made the point yesterday. You have to hate Trump more than you hate inflation. You have to hate Trump more than you hate the war in the Middle East. You need to hate Trump more than you hate Iran getting a nuclear weapon. You need to hate Trump more than you hate the billions of dollars funding the Russian and Ukraine war. You need to hate Trump more than transgender ideology in your children's school. You need to hate Trump more than all of those things, than crime in the streets and the unsecure border. Their entire political messaging is to make sure that you hate Trump more than all of the things that are destroying our country right now.
And if that is not divisive, and if that is not dog whistling, and if that is not everything that President Obama said the other side does, I don't know what is.
Right.
Again, watch what they do, not what they say.
Here's another example of the gaslighting, by the way, and the lying.
We can secure our borders without tearing kids away from their parents?
Okay, well, if you can do that, why haven't you? Why didn't you when you were president for 8 years? Why hasn't Joe Biden and Kamala Harris done it for the last 4 years?
Thank you.
And Barack Obama was the person who built the cages for children down on the border when he was being inundated with unaccompanied minors. And just yesterday, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's own Department of Homeland Security revealed a report that 291,000 children who crossed our border in the last 3.5 years are unaccounted for right now. They have lost them. 291,000 children, Lord have mercy, are unaccounted for right now. And Barack Obama dares to stand on that stage last night and say,
secure our borders without tearing kids away from their parents?
291,000 children.
Those are children almost certainly to be in sex trafficking and human trafficking right now. The people that Jeffrey Epstein would use for his clients, those are where I'm not going to direct say that that's where they source from, but those are children who are being exploited, very likely exploited. So Obama, use your energy about separating kids and go find those missing children and hold accountable those people, both the human traffickers as well as the Biden administration, for allowing this to occur.
It's 6:23.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is O'Connor and Company on this Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us. Coming up at 7:35, Chuck Thies is going to give us all the inside dirt on the arrest of Trayon White. Just more bribery, corruption, and dysfunction in the district council here in Washington. And at 8:05, Matt Schlapp of CPAC will give us his assessment of last night's festivities in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention. I'm Larry O'Connor. Patrice Onwuka is with us as Julie Gunlock's got the day off. Hey, Patrice.
Yeah, good morning, Larry. Good morning, everyone.
Until recently, I have mourned the dimming of that hope. And maybe you've experienced the same feelings, that deep pit in my stomach, a palpable sense of dread about the future.
And that's why we stuck a knife in Joe Biden's back, dragged him off the ticket, and unilaterally put Kamala Harris in place. Now we've got hope again. Cal Thomas is a syndicated columnist, and I'm sure he was up late with the rest of us watching last night's extravaganza. Good morning, Cal.
Oh, good morning to you, too. You know, this whole convention reminds me of a scene in the original Matrix movie where Lawrence Fishburne is talking to Neo, and he says, is it real or isn't it real? It's only real if you think it's real. This thing is a parade of just nothing. My favorite used to be the mobile clinic for the free abortion pill and the vasectomies, but I think I've graduated to a new favorite, a gender-neutral prayer room. Now, so I guess in the gender-neutral prayer room, you don't say our Father, you pray to whom it may concern.
You mentioned the abortion thing, Cal. You know, listen, this is certainly not Bill Clinton's Democrat Party anymore. You know, Bill and Hillary, they lied their way into power by saying that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. Now they're celebrating abortion, encouraging abortion, subsidizing abortions in an RV right outside the DNC. It's ghoulish.
Right. And the Democratic vice presidential nominee, when he was governor, of course, I think I read that 8 babies who survived abortions were allowed to die. This reminded me of Governor Ralph Northam in Virginia, who said, if the baby is born and the mother changes her mind, maybe she thinks the kid is ugly or something. You just make it comfortable, put it aside, and let it expire. I mean, this is your Democrat Party. Democrats want abortion under any circumstances for any reason. But look, remember, keep hope alive. I mean, we were talking about the future. Democrats were hopeful. Now it's gloom and doom. But when Trump says that we are in really bad shape, oh well, he's being negative. This is terrible for him to say. Look, my rule is if you never believe a politician, you'll never be disappointed.
Oh, that's a good rule. You know, it's funny, Cal. It seems like the Obamas were supposed to make a full-throated argument for Kamala Harris. I didn't hear that. I heard that, you know, we're coming back with hope, and I heard a little bit of, okay, Joe, we're going to try to make amends for how we pushed you off the cliff and out of your seat. But I didn't hear anything that was a positive vision or how Kamala Harris is actually the right person for the job. Did you?
No, they don't know what she believes. You know, it reminds me of an old line from the great W.C. Fields. Everybody's got to believe in something. I believe I'll have another drink.
Cal, there is an interesting thread of debate going on here, though, at the convention where you saw Bernie Sanders railing against the billionaire class and how people can't afford their rent and they can't afford their health care, and everyone talking about how things have to be changed, and Michelle Obama saying there's been dread and we got to bring hope back. Cal, the Democrats have been in the White House 12 of the last 16 years. And 2 of the years when Donald Trump was in the White House, they held the reins of power in the House and the Senate. Who exactly are they running against right now? They're the incumbent party in power.
Right. They're running against themselves, Larry. I mean, I did some research on this. I went back and looked at the language of various conventions and campaigns in the past, going back to Franklin Roosevelt. It's the same old thing. Harry Truman, too. Big corporations, evil rich people. The dirty little secret about Washington, and this is a message for people who have recently moved here, is that if you solve a problem, you no longer have the issue. And if you no longer have the issue, you don't have anything to run on. So why, as you suggested, why didn't they fix all these things that they say they're going to fix now when they had the power to do it? Because they didn't want to lose the issue. That's why.
So how do you see that? If you could quickly here in a minute give us a synopsis of where things are going, because it does look like the polls are tightening. They're getting back to normal. We see a poll in Virginia now. It's neck and neck because RFK is polling at 7%. That makes Kamala and Trump basically within 1 point of each other. How do you think this plays out over the next 80 days?
These polls are taken every year, and they always oversample Democrats. The goal of that oversampling is to discourage Republicans and conservatives to believe that their person doesn't have a chance of winning and to just stay home because the election is over. That's another dirty little secret of the pollsters. It all comes out after the fact. You won't see this reported on any network other than Fox. You won't see it reported in any newspaper other than the Washington Times.
Yeah.
But this is the way they do it every year. Now you guys are going to have to excuse me because I've got to go to my gender-neutral prayer room right now.
All right. Well, ZG bless you, Cal, as always.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, one of the New Jersey governor last night, did you see how he, just before the New Jersey delegation delivered their votes for Kamala Harris, his first words were, the state of New Jersey where a woman's right to have an abortion is protected. Then this woman gets up, and before she says anything else, she says, my pronouns are she, her, and they. Well, that was very comforting to me.
Yeah, well, they're all getting abortions in New Jersey. Calvin Coolidge Thomas, great to talk to you, my friend. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so we've been covering a lot of what happened inside of the DNC over the past couple of days, but we've got an update on what's happening outside and in the nearby areas. We've got a new report that Chicago police used batons to push protesters away from the Israeli consulate located just 2 miles from where the Democratic National Convention was being held. Now, these are probably some of the very same protesters that could not breach the perimeter of the convention, as we talked about yesterday, as we heard from some of the reporters on the ground there. They may have broken through the fencing, but they couldn't actually get in. And instead, they've turned their ire to the Israeli consulate in Chicago instead, Larry.
Yeah. Yeah, and they added an extra layer of security fencing around the arena, which, by the way, I thought walls don't work. I was told that that's not actually a thing that works. So, yes, of course, they said, okay, well, if we can't get to the DNC, let's go get the Jews. So they're downtown Chicago, 2 miles away, as you said, and here's what it sounded like. Absolute chaos. But I got to tell you something. I've seen an overhead shot of what the Chicago police did, and they were stellar. They were absolutely brilliant. They created multiple layers of perimeters around these blocks. Every block around the consulate, for 3 blocks in every direction, you had police set up to be any contingency if, in fact, the protesters got out of the one block that they had been isolated to. They made sure that they were contained. There was one person who threw a water bottle at a police officer. That person was arrested aggressively by the cops, I might add, by the way, and booked on charges, by the way. Is Muriel Bowser watching? I know she's there in Chicago. But this is how you deal with these dirtbag protesters, not the way they have here in D.C., where they let them take over George Washington University, let them take over the mall, let them take over the entire plaza in front of Union Station. This is how you do it, with a strong police presence that makes no exceptions for anyone, even if you do agree with their horrific anti-Semitic positions.
It's despicable. They're out there burning flags near the consulate and obviously, as you rightly said, trying to go after the Jews or telegraphing their hatred for the Jews.
Yes.
Meanwhile, we mentioned this yesterday, but more details on the 6 Israeli hostages that were being held in Israel, taken from Gaza on October 7th. Unfortunately, 6 dead hostages were rescued as part of a complex operation. Recovered, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's again, it's a sad reminder that there are still hostages being held, that Hamas has no value for life whatsoever, of their people, of anyone else, and that, our government needs to stand against this aggression and stand against the protesting Hamas supporters that are rioting across our country.
Yeah, but when I checked in with Joe Biden, the president of the United States, when he was talking about the protesters in Chicago, didn't he say that those protesters have a point? Those are the same protesters who were supporting the terrorists who killed all of those hostages and left them.
It's not true. That was not in the prompter either.
Oh yeah, that wasn't in the prompter. Those protesters have a point, but hey, it's good to know where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and this administration stand and whose side they seem to be on. Also, one other development out of Israel: it appears, based on reports from the State Department, that Hamas has walked away from the pending peace deal that was on the table. That Antony Blinken had been trying hard. Israel agreed to it, but Hamas won't. Here's the thing about this war right now between Israel and Hamas, and maybe it's time for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Antony Blinken and our State Department to realize this fact. Sometimes in war, there is a negotiated peace, and a war is ended, and you can move on, and maybe the war will crop up again as hatred festers. Sometimes, though, there are wars where there needs to be a clear-cut winner and a clear-cut loser.
Yes.
Right? Like World War II was ended with clear-cut winners and clear-cut losers, and then you rebuilt from the rubble. And it sure appears at this point that this war, given the fact that every single negotiated ceasefire has been violated by Hamas or has just been ignored by Hamas, maybe we need to reach the point, as adults in the room, that this war is going to have a loser and it's going to have a winner. And we need to be on the right side of that.
Yeah.
Sadly, I think my interpretation and most Americans' interpretation as the right side is a little different than Kamala Harris's and Joe Biden's.